Hi everyone. Today we are going to talk about 7.1b geometric sequences. So you are going to write down explicit formula for geometry sequence and use that formula to determine unknown terms. And also we are going to also find out recursive formula for geometry sequence. So you learned what it means, explicit formula and recursive formula in arithmetic sequence, right? It's the same thing. The explicit formula is a general formula, and recursive formula, you're using the previous term to get the next term. That's all the same thing. Only difference is arithmetic sequence is you're adding the common difference, same number to each term, right? The geometry sequence is instead of adding, you multiply the same number. We call common ratio. The geometry sequence is a sequence of numbers where each term after the first is found by multiplying the previous one by a fixed non-zero number called the common ratio. So you have a sequence 1, 3, 9, keep going like this. Do you see the pattern? What is the pattern? First term is 1, and after that, what do? You multiply by 3 each time, right? So can you find out the Gn, nth term? An, Gn doesn't matter, which means nth term, right? So how do you find the nth term? We are talking about explicit formula here now. So what's the formula for explicit, for geometry sequence? One more time, you should understand what is the geometry sequence means. You multiply what? Common ratio each time, right? 3 to the previous term, and you get the next term by multiplying 3 each time. So whenever you multiply 3 many times, what happens is it becomes 3 to the what power, right? Exponent, right? So how many times you multiply? If you multiply 3 second time, then 3 to the second power to get the third one, right? So you multiply 1 here, you multiply 3, then 3 to the 1 power, right? You multiply first to get the second term to the first term. And then third one, you multiply 3 how many times? 1 time, 2 times. Then 3 to the what power is it? 3 to the second power to get the third term. You will see that always n minus 1 times you multiply 3, right? To get the nth term. How many times? N minus 1 time. Then how do you write down? Common ratio to the n minus 1 power will be multiplied to the first term. So you already know this, but instead of D, we get the R common ratio. First term, second term, nth term, and minus 1 term or previous term. And then we get the explicit formula. A1, the first term, times what do? You keep multiplying all, how many times? And minus 1 time to get the nth term. Does it make sense to you? You keep multiplying common ratio to get the next term, next term, next term. So to get the nth term, you multiply R, common ratio how many times? And minus 1 time. So that's why the formula is A1 times R to the n minus 1 power. You remember arithmetic sequence, you add the D n minus 1 time. That's why D times n minus 1, you multiply, right? But geometry is you keep multiplying, it's a power exponent. That's the difference. So do you understand why you get the formula like this? A1 times R to the n minus 1 power. But recursive formula, again, to get the nth term, what do you do to the previous term? You multiply R to the previous term, right? Common ratio to the previous term. That's the meaning of recursive formula. So R times previous term, which is A n minus 1. But you should know what is the first term. always when you write down the recursive formula, you should write down an r times an minus 1 term, and then you should let us know what is the first term, a1, and that's it. So let's see with the example. 1, 3, 9. What is the first term? 1. What is the g of n? Which is explicit formula of r is, you know, the 3, right? Common ratio. How do you get the r? If you just look, you know there is a 3. But sometimes if it is confusing, you should do this. G2 divided by G1. Or G3 divided by G2. Always it will be the same. Term divided by any term before the previous term. Then you will get the R. All right. 3 divided by 1 is 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. If number is getting smaller, if it is opposite, then it will be a fraction. 1/3 or 1/2, something like this, right? Or G2 divided by G1 will give you the common ratio. And then you should check it if it works for the next one, right? So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Oh, it works. Then the pattern is you multiply same number 3 to the orange to the next previous term, right? Then you can get the next term 27 by multiplying 3 to the 9, right? So R will be 3. So, and then the g of n is g1 times r to the n minus 1 power. But 1, you don't need to write down. So just simply 3 to the n minus 1 power, right? But if it is not 1, don't multiply 1 and 3 like this. 1 is okay here, 3 to the n minus 1. But if it is 2, you should leave at 2 here. Because if you multiply 2 and 3, it's wrong, all right? When you have a powers, or you cannot multiply two numbers. Power first, exponent first, pandas. So do not multiply the first term and the common ratio. That is a common error. Many people make the same mistake like that. So this is the formula, explicit formula, 3 to the n minus 1 power. Then to get the seventh term, what do? You plug 7 into n, which is 3 to the 7 minus 1, which is 3 to the 6th power. You put this into the calculator, what do you get? 729. Everybody understand? Easy, right? Now, recursive formula. We learned the recursive formula, what the recursive formula is in the previous lesson. But recursive formula, again, generates each new term of a sequence based on a preceding term, which is a previous term of the sequence. For geometry sequence, you multiply common ratio to the previous term, g n minus 1 term, right? And you should let the what is the first term. So g1 is 1. Gn, again, 3 times previous term, right? That way, so you go now for recursive formula, you go step by step to get any term. You cannot go like a g to the 9th term directly here. If you want to go to the 9th term directly, what should you do? Instead of you go, because too many times you should do it like 9 up to 9th term. So you can get the explicit formula and then use the apply 9, replace 9 n by 9 directly and get the nth term. So it's up to you. You can do it, right? The explicit formula. So if you know the recursive formula, you can get the explicit formula. But if you get the explicit formula, also you can get the recursive formula, right? So 3 to the g n minus 1 term, I mean n minus 1. That's the recursive formula. So let's practice with this error analysis. Veronica didn't find the explicit formula properly, correctly. So can you find out what the mistake is and then write down the reason? Let's try together. Formula we know G of n equal to A1 times R common ratio to the n minus 1 power, right? So first term is okay. The pattern is you keep multiplying 2, so R is 2. First term, no problem. G of 10, okay, she plug 10 to the n here, no problem. So far, so good to get the G10. This was the nth term, explicit formula correct. Second, G10, so far, good. And then you need to simplify. So 2 times 2 is 4, 10 minus 1 is 9. Is it good? No. I told you, right? This is a common mistake. Some people make a mistake like this. It's a PEMDAS. You cannot multiply the first term with the common ratio yet. When you have exponent here, exponent first and then multiply. If you multiply first, completely wrong, right? It's like a common ratio is 4, this one. You keep multiplying 4 in this case, but it's not. So that was an error. So you cannot multiply this first, right? So let's correct it. 2 times 2 to the 9th power. If you put it into the calculator like this, you get the 1024, not this big number. Everybody understand? So you can practice this one by yourself. 80, 40, 20, 10. What's the pattern? Yes, it goes by, you keep, it becomes half each time, right? But sometimes if it is confusing, what did I do? When you get R, second term divided by first term, or third term divided by second term, or fourth term divided by third term. Everything same. R is 40 divided by 80 is half. 20 divided by 40 is half. 10 divided by 20 is half. So R equal to half, right? So when you get the, I'm sorry about this. So find out the explicit formula. I didn't write down here, but here AN equal to what? 80 times 0.5 to the n minus 1 power, right? 80 times 0.5 to the n minus 1 power. 0.5 is the same with the half. And the recursive formula is 0.5 to the previous term n minus 1, and the A1 is 80. So A is the term. Because of this, I forgot to write down here. This is an explicit formula. Instead of n, you plug 8 and then simplify, you get the 0.625. Does everybody understand? Okay, we'll stop here.